Hey, what's up, everybody? This is K Study QB, and we are in the political war room with my man, Kyle Dalsimer, who is the campaign manager for Ally Dalsimer. You know, Ally Dalsimer is somebody who's near dear to my heart. She's the fourth person to do the third or fourth person to do the People's Gauntlet, and that's the initiative that we're working on to hold our candidates accountable, to find out where they are on the issues. And I was just so happy that she was one of the people to agree to do it. You know, I like to call them my first class because they're the first four who completed it, all five, and became contenders. And the thing about these candidates that's so special to me is they're taking a risk. You know, the People's Gauntlet is not Justice Democrats or Democracy for America or Our Revolution, which they have a whole lot of clout, and there's a lot of money that can be raised once you're endorsed by them. Like right away, you can raise 100,000 in a couple days. But we're growing, and the aspiration is to get to that level, and they're getting in on the ground game as we build this initiative up. So, Kyle, say hi to the people.
Hello, everybody. Case, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited. I'm Kyle Dalsimer. I'm the campaign manager, political director, political advisor, and make sure things get done guy with the Ally campaign. So, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's get right into it. You know, this is Progressive War Room, where we talk political strategy, especially from a progressive point of view. We want to talk about how do we win. That's what I care about. How do we win and still keep our integrity and just reach the grassroots, reach the people, and sell out our ideas and win. All right. So the first question is, what is it like growing a grassroots campaign from the ground up?
Absolutely. I think that the best way to describe it is it is a mixed bag. You know, there are some days where we come in and there's a ton of support and there's a ton of great, exciting things that are happening. We've got new volunteers. We've got people contributing. We've got folks that were interested in joining the staff, and that's exciting. And then there's other days where it's a long haul, and and I think that's what it takes, because we don't take corporate money. You know, we don't go around having Ally talk to all of the biggest real estate developers and oil and gas execs in the district and be like, please support me. No, that's not what we do. So unlike a corporate candidate, we really have to do this based on people who want to support the campaign financially, who have no personal vested interest if they're wealthy, or are lower dollar folks who genuinely care about making the world a better place, as well as finding staff and volunteers who aren't necessarily in this for trying to advance their career, but they genuinely believe in these progressive values. You know, I mean, we still have that blacklist in Congress right now, where folks who work against challenging a Democratic incumbent will get blackballed in DC. You know,
Wow.
if I were to finish this campaign and then say, hey, I want to go work for, I don't know, let's say I wanted to go work for Barbara Lee on the Hill, I probably wouldn't be able to get an interview. You know,
Wow.
that's just how the DC works. And so the people who join a progressive campaign like Ally's are people who genuinely care about making a difference and believe that they can make a difference in the world. Which is it's huge, and it's important to have people like that on your side if you want to try and win a grassroots campaign.
So you would know way more than me that I thought that issue was resolved with the new, I believe O'Malley, I believe is his name.
Yeah, Sean Maloney, I think.
Maloney, there you go. Yeah. There you go, Patrick Maloney.
So what happened is they technically took the rule off the books, but they said, oh, well, technically it's off the books, but also you're still probably not going to get an interview because we don't really. So they took the rule off the books while continuing the internal policy.
Got you. And now that you say that, I think I remember that actually happened. What happened before was the person who was the DCCC chair before, like they officially put it on the books. Like they literally like had
Yeah.
it in black and white. And
Yeah.
then, while in the past before that, they would just like, it was like a word of mouth type of thing.
Yeah.
But so they were really brazen. But then Sean, he came in and just reverted back to the same old, same old.
What's interesting with that is that Sean Patrick Maloney, because for D-Trip chair, they always pick somebody who's sort of in a red to blue sort of district who's able to outperform. Because in their mind, they're like, oh, if they can outperform the district makeup, then they'll be good for trying to get us to pick up other seats. The woman who is the chair of the D-Trip before, she lived in a sort of swingy district, but she won in 2018 by 23 points. In 2020, she only won by about 2 points. So she lost 20%. She literally lost a fifth of the voters in her district in that 2-year span. So it does explain why they asked her to step down as D-Trip chair and why she's not running next cycle.
Yeah, and now Sean he's a New Yorker. I know that.
Yeah.
And
he's an upstate New York guy, though.
Upstate New York guy.
Upstate New York areas.
Yeah, I think he ran for attorney general, so he definitely has aspirations. So we'll see. Yeah, that's disappointing to hear, and that's one of the reasons why on the People's Gauntlet website we have a services page, and we're going to build that up. And basically, we have progressive candidates that we want our progressive. I said progressive candidates, but progressive operatives and consultants and people who can be potential treasurers for campaigns, and I'm hoping to continue to build that up. And I always try to interview the person on this channel, and then I put it up so that people can actually see the person and see how they do. And also, there's a progressive poster, and he does it at affordable prices. Yeah. So I'm trying to build. Hopefully, we can build that infrastructure with the People's Gauntlet for like a nonstop, a one-stop shop for grassroots progressive needs. So I'm glad I didn't even plan to talk to you about that. So I'm glad we were able to touch on that. So the next thing is, do you have any tips for grassroots campaign trying to gain traction?
Yeah. I think that, to some degree, you've got to sort of think of a campaign like a small business, right? You're putting down maybe not a financial investment at the beginning, but you're putting down an investment of your time and your effort, and you're sort of saying, okay, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 8, 10, 12, 16 months to try and run this campaign. And I think the starting block is just finding people who are going to work with you, who you can trust and rely on, whether those be people in your personal life, or they be people who you just know will be there and will work. You don't need, I think that people often get caught up in the what I sort of like to call the fireworks of the progressive movements. I think people are like, oh, I need a Justice Dems endorsement. I need our revolution. I need this. I need that. And those are all great things. And if you can get them, that's awesome. But you don't need them to run a campaign. What you need is the mental fortitude to know that some days you're going to be working for 14 hours, and every single person you talk to in the world when you're reaching out is going to be rude to you. It's got to take a candidate who's willing to sit on the phones doing call time for hours and hours and not get a single person who's interested. And just because those things are unfortunate realities of what's going to happen in a campaign. It's hard. And some people, especially when you care so much about making the world a better place and running these, we're the progressives. We're the good guys. We want to make sure that the world becomes a better place. We want everyone to have health care. We want to raise the wage. We want to make sure people can get a good education. We want to save the planet. Mm-hmm. And so when we do that and other people aren't as interested, or they're actively hostile, it makes it just that much harder. And so the biggest thing, in my opinion, yes, I mean, obviously you've got to hire staff, you've got to get data, you've got to, a myriad of different things, like logistically, when it comes to running a campaign. But the first thing that you have to do as a candidate or as a staffer on a burgeoning campaign is to understand that it's not going to be fun every day, but you need to make sure that it doesn't bring you down when there's a rough day, because there are going to be some really great days where you talk to someone who's just someone who really cares about these things that you care about too, and they say, oh, I'll write you a check, or oh, I will tell my friends about you, or oh, you guys can have your canvases at my house, you can organize them there. And so I would say that's the first thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can imagine it could be tough, like if I'm not gaining traction, if I'm not building a team. Like when I look at a candidate, I look for a couple things. Like, okay, how many people are on your team? How many people are in your staff? Like maybe how much paid staff you have, how many volunteers you have, and then with those statistics, you can kind of tell how far along or how serious a candidate is by
Absolutely.
those things. And if you're running for the first time and you're not gaining that traction, I can imagine that it can be tough. But like you said, those 14-hour days matter. You can't imagine, you can't just go sign the papers to officially get on a ballot or to run and then sit back and say, okay, I'm going to try to get on TYT or this big network, and that's going to carry me all the way. You got to start hitting the pavement. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you sit back and you're like, oh, I'll do this and I'll do this. I think that the progressive world is so good to reaching out for volunteers and grassroots donations and support. But you can't run an online campaign. You absolutely can't. And if I were to get Ally on TYT and have a weekly update with her, but then not do any ground game, any voter outreach, we'd get 5%, right? And that 5% would be very excited about her. They'd be super excited about her, but everyone else would be like, who is this other name on the ballot? I've never heard of her.
Yeah.
So we've got to, it's such a balancing act, right? Because we've got to make sure that we reach out, and we've got to make sure that we canvass and go to events and things like that. But it also has to be smart targets so that we're using the time of a candidate effectively. There's only so many hours in a day. And I think too often candidates get caught up in stuff that takes a lot of time and doesn't reap the reward that they need. I think back to the Knock Down the House documentary, right? Which was a documentary with AOC, Cori Bush, Paula Jean, and Amy Villela, all running for office. And there was a scene where Paula Jean and her team were sort of clearing out this space, right? This old I think it was like a little gazebo, and they were like, we're gonna have an event here, but it's like overgrown. So they spent the entire day, maybe more than one day, but not just her team, but her herself, like cleaning out this space to have this event at the end of the day. And I think a couple dozen people came. And that's not a good use of a candidate's time, right? Because during those 8 hours that she was doing this cleaning, we could have had her trying to do another speaking event, being on the phone with supporters, get an interview, and these, I think that it's always a balancing act there, because you want your candidate to be involved and to be active, but you also want to be like, hey, we'll handle this.
Yeah.
I've got something lined up for you over here.
Yeah.
Don't worry about packing these weeds, it's okay.
It sounds to me as a campaign manager, it's very important for you just to have a great calendar skill and being able to set up things in advance and make sure that, okay, we block this time out for this interview, we block out this time for canvassing, and just making sure it's like time management is a huge part of that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think time management is huge. I think people sort of like get caught up. I know I did when I was looking at politics before I became actively like working on a campaign at a high level. It was like, oh, the campaign manager, it's this like exciting thing. Oh, you're like the number 2 person. It's like, it's like, no, it's like, I manage her schedule. I make sure that she gets from place to place. We'll talk about policy. I'll like prep her for interviews. I coordinate with different groups, and those are all things that are very exciting. But the big thing for a campaign manager that I think a lot of people uh, don't sort of realize till they're in it is like, oh, you have to manage the campaign, and that means calendars, that means like text updates with every staffer being like, oh, are you doing this today? Oh, okay, that's good. So when is that gonna be done? Okay, great. So we're gonna, it's a lot of phone time and just making sure everything isn't falling apart.
So we touched on it a little bit of trying to get onto bigger left platforms. So I want to know, you've been on the Vanguard show
Yes.
in past, and you're endorsed by Marianne Williamson officially. Like, how did you get those connections?
Absolutely. I think the big thing for me is just I ask. I think that a lot of people are sort of like, oh, there's this thing out here. There's this abstract idea of like this endorsement, or there's this abstract idea of this interview, and they're like, how do you get that? How do you do that? And the biggest thing that I always say is you ask. I with the Marianne thing, I reached out to very early on, before the campaign even existed, when Ally and I were discussing the campaign and sort of talking about running. I reached out to Howie Klein, who runs the Down with Tyranny blog and is the runs the Blue America. And I reached out to him because I had heard from word of mouth that he sort of he knew a lot of people, and he was very involved and very supportive of progressives. So I reached out to him just after the 2020 elections had ended, basically, and told him that I had a candidate I thought he might be interested in. And I heard back from him about a month later, and we hopped on the phone and talked for a couple hours just about Ally and about the district. And he knew the opponent. In fact, he'd been actively supporting his challenger during the 2008 primaries when it was an open seat. And so we, that sort of became a thing. And then he asked me to write a guest post for his blog, which did pretty well. And then sort of we worked together up to launch. And at launch, he reached out to Marianne and said, I've got a good candidate for you. You should check her out. And Marianne ended up liking Ally and thinking that Ally was a great candidate. So we ended up, in fact, Marianne ended up endorsing. We launched it, I believe, 2 p.m. On the 8th of February. And Marianne reached out at like 6 or 7 that evening.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's one thing I got to give credit to Marianne Williamson. There's people on the left that get upset with certain takes that she might have, but she, after her presidential race, she's jumped in and has been actively helping out progressives and doing what she can and to push the progressive ideology and hopefully get some good people in office. So I got to definitely give her credit for that. Andrew Yang is kind of doing the same thing. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of interesting how he's going about doing it. So we'll see what kind of fruit his initiative bear, but I can definitely see what fruit Marianne Williamson is bearing, because I've seen the people she's endorsed, and I've definitely interacted with Ally, and she's just an awesome candidate, a woman of integrity, and I have nothing but praise to give to her. That's so, I was going to ask this question at the end, but since we're talking about like the challenges that can come from winning an election, let's say she wins, and I'm hoping she wins. She wins. Representative Ally Dalsimer is in Congress. How do you think she's going to deal with the pressures of the Speaker of the House? Hopefully, it's not Nancy Pelosi, and it's somebody's that's good. But let's say it's Hakeem Jeffries, God forbid. The pressures of not being a part of the clique, the pressures of that high school mentality, and all those different things that would cause you not to vote no, but to vote present, not to name anybody specifically on different bills. So how do you think she will deal with that?
Absolutely. And I think that I know Ally, I think, better than most people, so I can
I'm pretty sure you do.
So what I know about her, more than anything, is that she's not somebody who cares what other people think. You know, she really cares a lot about doing the right thing. In fact, you look at the fact she spent 2 years working either in collaboration or directly with Department of Defense, right? As a 2 decades as and doing natural resources and ending up running the natural resources department there. You know, I don't know if you've interacted with people at DoD, but those it's filled, especially in that sort of wing. It's filled with military personnel, hunters, sort of the old, like the old boys club, right? That's who's in DoD leadership, as well as the high ranking generals and colonels in Air Force and Army and Navy and all those that she worked with. And so she, you know, she's a shorter woman running against sort of working in this field that's predominantly run by a bunch of sort of the good old boys. And she navigated that and was able to not only like do well, but like rise up and continue to succeed and actually get some of her policies done, even when they weren't necessarily fans. And it's because she actively, she didn't care, and she wasn't worried about like, oh, I'm going to be nice and I'm going to play politics and I'm going to do this. She's like, this is what needs to get done. I'm going to work with you on this. I'm going to find common ground, right? You know, she one of the biggest examples that I think of is you look at there's a Florida sugar plant that was trying to get put up, and there was a coalition of environmental activists and hunters who came together and collaborated to stop this. And they disagree on almost everything. You know, the environmentalists are like, save the animals, and the hunters are like, we want a place where we can shoot animals. Right?
Yeah.
But they were like, both of us agree we don't want the sugar plant here. So we're going to work together to make sure it doesn't happen. Ally's done stuff like that for decades. That's literally been how she's gotten stuff done. And so to get back to Congress, you know, we've talked about this a lot. I don't know who the speaker will be next cycle. Next session rather. I don't even know if Democrats will retain the majority. But whoever the speaker is, I can tell you with confidence that because Ally's got that experience, as well as the fact that she's not in this for a career, you know, she's had her career. If she wasn't running for office, she'd be in her garden tending to her flowers and hanging out with her cat, you know. But she's doing this because she cares and she wants to make a difference, right? And so she's got no interest in playing political games. She's got no interest in trying to find power and like get all this stuff going on. She wants to go in, make a difference, and if somebody's trying to block that, if somebody's trying to strong arm her from the corporate wing, she's simply not going to. She's not going to bend to them. She does not care about that.
Awesome. I just want to take a quick break to give a shout out to our audience in the chat. PJ All for Nothing, much love to you. PJ Holly Horn, Maria that's in the chat, and Bendone was in the chat. Yeah, with what you just said, you know, I witnessed Ally's integrity when she joined the Gauntlet, and I heard her talk about it. And the idea of the People's Gauntlet is if you have more than one person doing the Gauntlet in your particular district. So let's say Ally had another People's Contender. She said, hey, if the people voted and we see that this person is a lot better to win, I will gladly drop out and endorse and help that person win. And that's the type of mentality that I can tell people who even say they're progressive. I can see, I describe that to people, and you can see it in their mind, like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to risk dropping out of the race if I could help it. And the thing is, if you're progressive, if you care about winning and getting progressive policy done, man, that's a good problem to have when you have more than one candidate and we're all vying for the best person to win. And then we find that person that's the best. Like has all the whole package, the charisma, because you have to we have to depend on candidates not only to vote for the policy that we want. We have to see that they have the charisma and the convincing skills to kind of convince moderates. Or you just talked about building coalitions, maybe even with Republicans, to get an Medicare for All bill. You know, Trump was talking about when he ran the first time, oh, we're going to give health care to everybody. And the reporter asked, well, who's going to pay for it? He said, oh, the government's going to pay for it. That sounds like Medicare for all to me. So, yeah.
And I'll just tell you that I talk to a lot of people from all political ideologies. One of the things that I sort of pride myself on is finding that common ground. You know, I have friends and colleagues of all political stripes and colors, and I think what's interesting is we sort of look at Congress, right? We look at the people in office and we say, oh, there's no progressive Republicans. They're all swamp monsters. They're all corporate. They're all this stuff, right? And that is true for Congress. You know, even the people who sort of like play the more populist Republican, it's not based in reality when push comes to shove. But there are people who are socially conservative, who live in a socially conservative household and were raised on these values that I disagree with vehemently, but that's what they believe. But they want universal single payer health care. They want aggressive climate action. They want much better schools and opportunities for everyone to learn and succeed. And so I talk to these people and they're like, yeah, all these sound great. It's just that I hate Democrats, and I'll vote with the Republicans, even though I disagree with them on the economic issues, and because they sort of have a really good strategy of hitting these social issues that people care about and making those the entire conversation while blocking out the issues where most people agree with us, healthcare, education, environments, all those great things. You know,
Definitely.
And so it's so important for progressive campaigns not to try and just reach out to the progressive voters in your district, because I got to be honest, if you just go with how people self-identify, then they won't. You know, it's not going to work out unless you're in New York City or you're in LA or a big bustling metropolis like that. But if you can reach out to all voters and say, these are common sense things, these are things we all care about, we all want to make a difference. And sure, there will be a quarter of the population who say, I hate universal health care because only I want to have good insurance, you know? And I'm like, okay, that's going to be a reality. But that other 3/4 is with you on this. They're all with you on this, especially if you can explain this in a common sense way. So there's no reason that we can't win if we're winning on policy. It's just about reaching out to folks and like actually explaining to people like, this makes sense and we agree on this. We don't have to agree on everything. And I think that's a big problem in the progressive movement. I think you were talking about Marianne and how some folks on Twitter aren't always happy with her because she makes takes that we disagree with. I disagree with sometimes. But it doesn't negate the fact that she has been one of the most fierce champion of progressive primary challengers. You know, who else is endorsing all these candidates who all have a shot and all are good candidates who might not get the attention if they didn't have her backing, you know?
Yeah. And doing it this early too. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. It typically, I mean, campaigns chase endorsements up until the last minute of the campaign, you know? If somebody gets an endorsement at 4 p.m. on election day, that's good. They'll blast it out and be like, yeah, we can get 600 more voters because we got this endorsement, right? And so to have her come out so early, it shows a true passion for progressive change and putting your money where your mouth is, you know?
And some people are worried about their win number, meaning that the amount of people they endorse, how many of those people won.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're not going to be able to get someone to win if you don't endorse early.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, yes.
You know, people will be like, "Oh, my win number. Oh, I don't know if you're viable. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have enough support." And I'm like, "Well, we'd have a lot more support if we had your name next to the campaign. You know, it would be a lot easier for us to win and bring up your win number if you came out and backed us."
Yeah.
I think that it's a big problem. Yeah.
Kyle, what do you think about people who have lost faith in electoral politics? So I just put this comment up real quick from Marla that said a lot of those so-called progressives are just Twitter activists and aren't serious about electing and bringing about tangible change. And then there were people that got discouraged by the squad, you know, including myself, with certain actions. I call it I don't want to just cancel people out of nowhere, like, or they do one thing and it's like, oh, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
I call it more like points, like I think AOC specifically has lost progressive clout or progressive points over time since she got into office. So one of the times being when it was the vote for the Iron Dome, she voted neutral, like or president instead of just voting no, and that could have stopped. You know, if enough people said no, that could have stopped it. So that's one example of where, you know, we could talk about forced to vote and all these different things. That's a strategy to talk about for another day. But definitely there's these things that people have become discouraged to the point where I've had another candidate tell me that when they're doing call time, meaning they're trying to raise money, they're getting yelled at saying, hey, you know, this person didn't do this or that. And you're trying to get into office to do the right thing, or not you, but, you know, your candidate, Ally, and they're being hurt by people who ran in the same lane as Ally, and then they're not doing what they say they would do.
Yeah. This is absolutely an issue that Ally faces. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the room while she's doing call time and she gets off the phone and she said, well, that person said they would have supported me last year, but they're not happy with the squad, and so they've given up on progressives. You know, and it's heartbreaking, right? Because I think just to loop all the way back to the beginning with people sort of getting out of it or being anti-electoralism, I come to every argument with the presumption that everyone is acting under good faith. You know, I'm not the person to be like, he's a bad faith actor, he's a bad faith actor, she's a bad faith actor, they're a bad faith. You know, it's not. I think that's a very flawed way to look at things. With that said, you know, I get it, right? I get being discouraged with stuff because we sort of had this idea planted early on, where it's like, if we can just get a couple progressives in, if we can get a couple people in, then everything will change. Everything will be different. They'll block votes. They'll do this. They'll do that. And what we're coming to realize is that's unfortunately not the reality of the situation, you know? And there's a lot of things that go into that. I think that part of it is inexperience. Part of it is the sort of calculation of, you know, if I play ball now, maybe I can eventually ascend to a position where I can make bigger differences, which I think is never. I very much disagree with that, just because we've seen time and time again that House leadership especially will never give any progressive any power. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't even think Barbara Lee is a committee chair, and she's been in Congress for 20 years, which is just astounding and ridiculous, considering that woman's track record. You know,
she ran for the position that Hakeem Jeffries is currently in, and what happened was on his way out, the person Crowley, he told some lies and said that that Barbara Lee gave money to AOC during the primary while they were still battling it out. When AOC won, that's when it's like tradition or whatever for candidates.
Yes, the leadership pack gets involved.
To give, and individually you could give money too. And that's when she gave money, like as a, hey, welcome to the Democratic Party or whatever, to Congress. She gave money, and he spread that lies, and that kind of messed her up. getting into that position. But anyway, yeah.
Absolutely. No, and I think that the big thing, right? People are not sure what to do. They're like, oh, well, these progressives who ran as Democrats have in their estimation failed them, right? And so they're like, what do I do now? Do I stop being involved in electoralism? Well, the answer to that is no. We cannot stop being involved in electoralism, because the only people who will have a negative impact from that are the people who are most at risk, most in danger, the working class people. And so it's really self-sabotage to do that.
Yeah.
And then we have folks be like, okay, well, I will never vote for a Democrat again. I will vote only with this party. I'll only vote People's Party, Green Party, all these things, which I also think is flawed, because we have to look at candidates as candidates, not on their parties. I've long been an advocate for. I'd love to see the day where parties as a whole are gone and we just run on policy. That'd be incredible. It's not close to reality yet, but maybe we see that sometime in the coming decades. But
do you think with ranked choice voting or star voting we could get that?
I do believe that with star voting, and I think ranked choice voting might be a first step. I think that star voting is actually, I think it needs a rebrand personally, because I think people don't understand it, and if you simply explain it as like 1 to 5 approval voting, be like, hey, when you get a work survey and they ask you to rank how things were on a 1 to 5 scale, do that for the candidates. That's all the explanation that needs to happen, but for some reason it's not.
Or even like Amazon is a good example. I think you can rate a product when you buy a product from 1 to 5.
1 to 5 star. Yeah, exactly. You have the 1 to 5 star ranking for each candidate, and it needs more mainstream attention, because it's the most equitable and the smartest way to do voting.
I think that there's different fractions on the left. I hate the derogatory words. Me personally, they got the dumb left, the alt left, all these different names when we're all one ecosystem. And I understand there's going to be fractions, right? Back in the day, they had the Communist Party, they had 2 different socialist parties. But the thing about back in the day where FDR was president was those 3 were able to collaborate and build a coalition on a certain level called the New Deal Coalition.
Exactly.
And they were able to push FDR to do left policy, right? And we need to, I feel like on the left right now, we have a lot of bickering, which is fine. I don't even have a problem. I'm actually out there eating popcorn at times when there's a lot of the drama going on. But the thing is, therefore, we can't collaborate, right?
Yeah.
We have
which is ridiculous.
Which is a counterproductive. So I'm hoping that we're going to build an environment. They had the Fred Hampton leftists. They have a new name now, and they had a summit, and I was glad to be involved with that, because I think when we're reaching out and we're helping each other, we can build a coalition that it builds a avenue to collaborate. We're not there yet. The infrastructure is not there yet, but I'm hoping that the same way with each cycle, I'm hoping that we could get somebody in that's a little bit more radical to the left. Like we had AOC and the squad the first cycle, and I think they shaked up things a little bit. Then you had the next cycle. I think Cori Bush, even though people said it was very performative, I think there was something special, even if it's performative, about her standing on the Capitol steps and holding the ground for 5 days to do something. I'm excited to see what's the next cycle going to bring.
And I'll tell you just about Cori Bush, because Ally joined her on the steps of the Capitol. Because Virginia's 11th is just outside of DC, and I'll tell you, I think that a lot of folks outside of this and sort of seeing it on TV and whatever, we're saying, oh, it's performative, it's this. That woman was sitting on the steps of the Capitol. She was exhausted. She was hungry. She was cold. It started raining at one point. They were out there freezing in the cold and the rain. Here's the thing. We didn't end up getting a full. The eviction moratorium was not ended, which was, it wasn't everything that we wanted, but she was able to get something done that simply would not have happened. It would not have happened if she hadn't done that. And she was able to give folks at least a little bit more time to figure out what they could do and figure out where they were going to go from here. You know, and I will always have immense respect for Cori Bush. I think that I believe that Cori Bush and folks like her are the wave of the future in the progressive movements. We need people from all different backgrounds to come to the table. We need somebody who is an activist on the ground, a Black Lives Matter activist who is also a pastor, who is also homeless, who is also all these things. That's Cori Bush. We also need policy experts like Ally. We need former electeds who've been in the state house for 20 years and have been able to get a bunch of stuff done. We need farmers. We need small business owners. We need all these people. We need artists, you know, who can come. We need that coalition, because one size fits all. And this is a belief I have in almost every single lane, whether it comes from running for office or getting stuff done in office. One size fits all simply doesn't work. It's not enough, and we need to tailor things, and we need to make sure that we've got a coalition that actually has a bunch of different ideas and a bunch of different perspectives, so we can get things done. You know, the establishment has their lawyers, they have their CEOs, they have their doctors, they have a bunch of people with a bunch of different backgrounds. You know, they're hedge fund owners, right?
And they're collaborating. They have no problem.
They're collaborating.
Coalitions. Yeah.
The Democratic establishment love working together. They're great at getting things done. The problem is the things that they get done aren't in the best interest of the working class people, right? So we've got to, you know, do not compromise on issues, do not compromise on values. But those guys know what they're doing. Take some of their stuff and incorporate it into our progressive movement so that we can be successful without becoming them.
100%. I just want to highlight another great comment from Marla. Said most people are intellectually lazy and just wanted to elect one person to do all of their thinking so they could go back to sleep, just like the back to brunch liberals. That's a good point.
And that's a very good point.
Let me see. So also, I just wanted the new name for the Fred Hampton leftists is Revolutionary Blackout Network. That's right. Thank you for
that's very exciting.
That. Yeah. I'm very excited about the fact that, you know, people have a lot of beef, but one thing I got to say about those guys is they're willing to go to any channel, and that's what we need. We need people that are just want to communicate, just are able to communicate with each other. And you find that when you get on the same stream with somebody, even if you have beef with on Twitter and stuff, like when you're talking to the person to their face,
one-on-one,
that big trail is not the same, you know. And
exactly,
and we can hopefully get things more collaboration going on. So man, we're getting talking to you, time is flying. So let me see if we can do a lightning round. So have you guys followed the recent losses, unfortunately, of India Walton and Nina Turner, and what lessons have you learned from that?
Absolutely. You know, I was on the ground in Ohio in August. I was up there.
I saw a picture of you. Yeah.
I went up there for GOTV for Get Out the Vote, and it was honestly sort of a progressive mecca. You know, everyone from all around the country were traveling there to try and make this happen, and that was a good thing in some ways. But I also think it was somewhat detrimental. You know, I have a really strong belief that if you're not on the ground, your opinion isn't. I don't credit the opinion when people, you know, when CNN goes on and tries to talk about what went wrong with Nina's race, or even progressive outlets who weren't there. You know, I always take that with a grain of salt, because I never did before Nina's race, because I was like, oh, they're the experts, they must know. But after being on the ground and then hearing what people out of district, out of state were saying, I was just like, that's not even remotely what was happening. You're flat out wrong. And I think that the only way that you can really know is being there and seeing it, right? And so what I saw while I was there was a robust ground game.
Oh, really? Okay.
Very robust.
Okay.
There were hundreds of people knocking doors, and I will tell you this: I did not see a single Chantel Brown door knocker. I did not see a single canvasser from Chantel Brown's campaign, which made me think, I was like, we're gonna win this. I was like, we're gonna win this. I talked with folks at doors, and they're like, yeah, we haven't had anybody from Chantel's campaign come around, and I was like, well, great, but what the Chantel Brown campaign did was they targeted the wealthier and the majority Jewish neighborhoods, and they targeted nursing homes, and so they ran up the scores at those ballots. And frankly, people always talk about, they're like, we need as many touches on doors as possible, as many door knockers, as many this, as many that, right? And that's good to some degree, but what's important is not, can we knock a door? It's, can we get a good knock and a quality conversation? Because not just canvassing isn't enough. In fact, sometimes it's detrimental. I'm going to be honest. I think that it was great that a lot of people came from all around the country. I was glad to come and canvass and help. I think that a lot of voters, especially in majority Black and brown neighborhoods, were turned off by a bunch of sort of college age, upper middle class white people coming and being like, this is who you have to vote for. This is who you have to vote for. And
Wow.
in fact, I canvassed with Elijah Manley, who is I'm not sure if you know about him. He is currently running for State House in Florida. He ran last time against the minority leader of the Florida State House. And he's incredible, and he's an incredible leader. And he's going to be the youngest elected official for a state house office. He's going to win in a couple months.
All right.
But we were knocking doors, and we'd finish two sides of the street, and we'd get back. I was like, how did that go? He's like, great. I had a bunch of great conversations. I was like, really? Nobody really wanted to talk to me. I was like, why is that? Yeah. And we sort of looked at each other for a second, and we were like, you don't need to answer that. We're on the exact same page. This is what happened, right? Okay. And I really think that it turned off a lot of voters. They were like, who are these people? Why are they in my neighborhood? And like, it was weird, right? Yeah. For a lot of voters, especially because Cleveland is not some political hub where they're, no one's ever driven into Cleveland for an election to try and change the results, right? And so it was weird for a lot of people in district.
So let me ask you, knowing, we're playing Monday morning quarterback, but knowing what you know now, what would you have advised the Nina Turner campaign to do, knowing what you know now, or what would you do differently?
I think, and what I found out later was they brought in an excellent field director early on. I believe this person was the field director for Stacey Abrams' campaign, as well as a few other very high profile, Stacey Abrams for governor in 2018, a very high profile person, and had a great strategy. But then to my understanding, had a family emergency in about early in 2021 and had to leave the campaign and go back home. And they sort of, instead of finding somebody new, they sort of continued staffing it with the field staffers and the lower level people, and never really returned had a new field director come on. And so this is what I say. There was hundreds of people knocking doors and talking to folks, but I was there on election day knocking doors, and I look in the Van app to track voting, and I'm saying, I look to the touches. I'd be like, okay, how many times has this person been hit up? Because I'll change my message at the door if they've already had 3 people knock on their door, and it says no data available. And I turn to Elijah and I say, we're knocking doors of people on election day that have not had a single person knock their door yet in one of the swingiest precincts in the district. We were in Maple Heights, which is one of it really could have gone either way. It was a very much a big district too. It wasn't one of these tiny precincts. It was a high volume target precinct, and I was like, why are we knocking doors that haven't been hit yet? And so I really think.
So you should have been knocking on what type of doors?
I really think that we should have been doing get out the vote. Those doors should have been knocked a month, 2 months ago.
And at that point, it's time to do something different.
Yeah, if we were knocking those doors, it was, hey, just want to remind you it's election day. Okay. See you. I know you already know about Nina, so let's get you out there, right?
Okay.
I think that was a big thing. But I really will say, a lot of this election, you cannot blame on Senator Turner. And I think that a lot of it came down to field, but a lot of it was the attack ads and the money, right? And it was the strategy, because what happened was Senator Turner came out and started posting and being like, I've got a 38-point lead in this poll. I've got this, I've got that. And at the time I was like, that's so exciting. She's going to win.
Yeah.
And then I look back and I'm like, Hillary Clinton saw that and said, not in my house.
Yeah. You're repeating exactly what I said yesterday to Marcus Cooper. Like,
yeah,
Nina Turner waved a flag and was like, "Hey, come get me!" Like,
literally, I was when I tell you, I was certain Senator Turner was going to win. I was certain until I walked into the after party at this bowling alley in Cleveland, and someone says, "Oh, first results are in," and I look, and she's at 37.63 with 10% in, and I go, "What? I don't. And that was the moment I sort of like reflected on what was going on. So what happened was Senator Turner was leading. She started putting out these ads being like, I am a daughter of Cleveland, which was exciting. It was very cool. And she had good ads, and she had the universal healthcare ad. Chantel Brown then came out and had her super PACs come and do attacks, right? So what happened after that was that Nina said, I have to respond. But instead of going through a PAC, instead of letting a third party handle her dirty work, she said, I'm Nina Turner and I sponsor this ad. Chantel Brown did this. Chantel Brown did that. And so even though she was the one being attacked and she was replying because she was on the defensive, voters who didn't really understand what was going on or didn't really know, don't know dirty politician tricks, were like, oh, she's being aggressive and mean. That's not, and that wasn't the case, but that was the perception. In fact, I talked to voters on election day, and we talked about different things, and they said, "Oh yeah, well that ad said Nina Turner did this, and then this ad said that Chantel Brown took money, but I don't know, I mean." And I was like, well, the Chantel Brown thing is true. I was like, you can just look that up, but the Nina Turner thing is out of context. And they were like, "Oh, is it? Oh, okay." They didn't, because they're not like you and me or the people who are on this call where they're going to be like, oh, I'm curious, so I'm going to spend the next 2 hours researching the history of this politician and actually look into the details. They're not going to do that because they've got lives. They're busy. They've got work. They've got kids. They've got family, whatever the case may be. So if they see a TV ad that says Nina Turner isn't really a Democrat and she hates Democrats, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to turn out. I really genuinely had people at the polls tell me I can't vote for Nina Turner because she's not a Democrat.
Wow.
And that was heartbreaking.
Wow.
That was heartbreaking to me.
Yeah. Let me just throw this. This is a critical. I like to show all even critical comments. Janice Anderson said, blaming the money is a cop-out. Anyone who follows politics knew that would be a problem. But I'm hearing stuff
Janice,
from
I agree with you, Janice, that blaming money exclusively is a cop-out. And the fact is, I think Nina Turner is incredible, and I have a great deal of respect for her as a leader and a speaker and a generational figure. I will say, I do not think that the finances on that campaign were run as well as they could have, just because they had a lot of cash on hand after the election, and which makes me wonder. I'm like, I mean, yes, they poured a lot of money into hurting her, into attacking her. But you guys had the money to come back and put ads out there and sort of combat this. And I don't know what I won't speak to it because I wasn't in the finance room. I can only speak to what I saw on the ground and the conversations that I heard talking to hundreds of voters over those few days. But but for whatever the reason, they you know, they had a ton of cash on hand at the end of the race, and they simply just, I really think that they could have used that to combat the media narrative, because as much as we don't like to talk about it in the progressive movement, because we're like, oh, TV ads aren't this. The fact is, TV ads are still impactful. You know, radio ads are still impactful. Media still makes a difference in the results of elections. You know, we can't. Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, and I'm also a supporter of Nina Turner. I hope she runs again. But I'll tell you this much, that I was disappointed and surprised that, you know, someone that was the president of our revolution, I would be critical that she was the chief organizer as being the president of our revolution. So you would think that when it came to her own campaign, it would probably be the smoothest campaign. But I think, you know, I heard Jeff Weaver was also someone that came into, I don't know at what point, but he was involved with the campaign as well. And, you know, there were just the decisions being made is questionable from somebody who, you know, when I imagine our revolution in its first mandate, it was to try to get progressives elected at all levels. So if I'm thinking, if I'm the president, I'm going to be strategizing with there's local chapters, there's the national, and then I want to have a board or like directors for all the individual states that communicates with those directors, and then we're going to see, okay, what's the strategy in this district, that district, and then we're all having a convention once a year to find out, okay, what was the issues that happened, what can we learn from them, and like you're just doing that infrastructure, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. What was the issue that came up? How do we learn from it? Boom, boom, boom. So that by the time our revolution is about 4 years old or so into it, or now like more 5 or 6, like they would pretty much be mastering how to organize at the ground level, and then knowing about all these little nuances, like you just said, go to the nurses, the nursing homes, and get as many, or at least cancel it out. Like you don't even have to get all the votes, 100% of votes, but like get a 50-50 to
at
cancel
least
them out.
Get there, be in the room, and give them the option, you know?
Yeah, so I want to definitely respect your time, Kyle. Can I get another 10 minutes? I'm going to go straight. Awesome.
Absolutely, no worries for me.
Appreciate it. So let's go straight into the People's Gauntlet. So I'm working on the next phase of the People's Gauntlet, whereas how do we involve the volunteers? And because the volunteers are going to be the ones voting to decide who becomes the people's champion. Now, right now, we don't have that problem. We only have 4 people, and I'll show the website real quick. Right now, we have Amani Oakley, Juan Paredes, Sass, and of course, Ally Dalsimer. She's the 4th person to do the gauntlet. And then here's Ally's page where she has all 5 gauntlets. These are all the 5 gauntlets tabs here. And then these, you can click on the videos to get her response. So for third reconstruction, for gun reform, etc. But the next step is getting volunteers involved. And I really want to not be a hindrance or to be an extra burden to the campaign. But I was thinking of finding ways to make volunteers fun. And to once somebody becomes a volunteer, how do you like hold on to that person? Because I can imagine someone volunteering, but maybe they do 1 hour a week, or maybe they volunteered one time and then they're like, I'm tired or whatever. How do we build a fraternized kind of environment where they're coming to a community, they're coming to like a social kind of environment where they're meeting friends and they're getting responsibilities and they're getting purpose, and it's something that's adding to their lives. So they want to stay involved. They want to build up. And I think even though money is very important when it comes to campaigning, I think as progressives, we have to lean more on the people power, on the grassroots. That's what I believe. And I think one of the ways of doing that is gamification. I looked into a gamification book, and this is just an example. If anybody have any ideas, let me know. But the idea is like, if for every door you knock on, you'll get a point. For every phone banking call you make, maybe you get a point. Something that's harder, like hosting an event at your house, that's a harder thing to kind of prepare for. Maybe get 25 points for that. And then as you accumulate points, you can give out badges. You can maybe the campaign will give you a special shirt that says super volunteer, or little idea. It's unlimited ideas with this. So I want to throw that at you. What you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan of gamification. I think that there is a problem. We're definitely glad to have had dozens of people reach out and say they're interested in volunteering with us. Early on in the campaign, it's different here in Virginia because I think Virginia and New Jersey are the two states in the United States where there's off-year elections for statewide office. Um, and that, because of that, especially in Virginia, which was still seen as a very toss-up state, although New Jersey ended up being a bit closer than anyone really expected. We weren't really able to go out and do the canvassing and doing this and reaching out in that way. So we're excited to sort of get our volunteers mobilized. But I'm absolutely for gamification. I think that the big thing is that you know candidates need to provide a reason for somebody to volunteer for them, right? I mean, here's the thing: we're not entitled to volunteers. We have to earn that support. Campaigns do, and that could be from I really care about this issue that this candidate supports. I want to be involved in politics, or this is a fun thing that I can do with my friends, right? I think that too
Exactly.
often, yeah, I think too often campaigns get caught up in this idea of like this is what a volunteer looks like, or
Mm,
even this is what a finance assistant looks like, or this is what a
mm.
campaign manager looks like, and these are their tasks, and this is what they do, and they don't stray from that.
Okay.
And I think that's a problem, right? Volunteers can hit, and so it's not just when we say we need volunteers. It's not me saying I need free labor for people to knock on doors. If that's what you're interested in doing, if you want to knock 150 doors, if you want to call 200 people, if that's great and that's awesome. If that's not what you want to do, you can still volunteer. You can help with the finance staff. You can help organize the website
Yeah.
and check for things.
Mhm.
You can reach out to media. You can release talk to friends. You can do, like, there's so many things that you can
Mhm.
do to be a volunteer on a campaign. And I think a lot of people just sort of think, oh, it's me sitting out either in the freezing cold or in the burning sun, knocking on doors and having people be rude to me, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And here's the thing: if you're a good canvasser, like, come on down, help
Yeah,
us
yeah.
out. We love your help,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah,
But you don't have to be a canvasser. You don't have to be
yeah.
a call banker to be a great volunteer and to help
Yeah.
out. Like you said, you can hold a house party and invite 20 of your friends,
Yeah, yeah,
and then they'll all vote for Ally, and maybe some of them will be canvassers. You
yeah.
can you can help finance staff organize their fundraising list, right? You
Mhm,
can
mhm,
help do this, help, like, there's so much that can
mhm.
get done, and there's so much that needs to get done on these
That's
progressive.
so interesting. So we're strategizing in public. This is how grassroots the people's gauntlet is right now. We're having this discussion in public. So I'm thinking through the people's gauntlet, what if, especially you as the campaign manager, you could put out on, and what I'm thinking right now is you would have a page. So Ally has her own page, and I put that in the tweet that I tweeted out, which is peoplesgauntlet.com/Ally Dalsimer, and it will
Mhm.
take you to her 5 gauntlets. But we can have peoplesgauntlet.com/Kyle Dalsimer, and instead of a People's Gauntlet page, it will have like your a different type of page. But let's, for simple purposes, we call it your campaign manager page, right? And then you can put out, okay, we need canvassers, we need phone bankers, we need like the stuff that you need to do, and especially in the immediate purposes, just put a call to action. We need 10 of these people to do this, we need that, or even when we get to gamification, we need 1,000 hours of phone banking a week, and
Mhm.
we need 100 doors knocked on per week. I'm just throwing out numbers for simple purposes. And then, so as your volunteers, you are physically getting volunteers, but then over time, as I'm hoping the initiative becomes popular and people see, oh, let me see who's in my state that's a people contender. Oh, I'm in Virginia, and oh, Ally needs help with door knocking. Let me apply, and or let me be a volunteer. Let me find out how I can help.
Yeah.
And now you're literally getting the numbers and the analytics. Analytics are becoming so needed. Even in the NBA, they use in sports, they use so
Absolutely.
many
Yeah. Yeah.
analytics, right? And now you can say, wow, the last month, each week we have volunteers do this amount of hours, this amount. Okay, we need to up it up a little bit here. We need to, adjust it here. And then I think also, instead of, we always get bombarded with texts of, oh, we need money, we need money, we need this, we need the money, money, right? Now, if you're putting your call to action, I don't have that much money, but I can spend an hour on a call, on a phone banking. I can knock on a certain amount of doors. Oh, I see Kyle, he's requesting 20 door knocks. Okay, I could spend some time, an hour, and so this is now, we're thinking about this totally differently. And I'm hoping, I think I really want to try to build this out. It might fail, but one thing that I learned from the civil rights movement, something that Martin Luther King said, is like, don't be afraid to fail.
Absolutely.
You have to try different ideas, and we have to make it happen. So, Kyle, you're gonna be expecting some more DMs from me. We're gonna be talking about this.
I am looking forward to it.
We can hash this out. And thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you so much. I'm gonna give a quick shout out to some people in the chat: PJ Holly, Marla, all for nothing, and Vendone was in the chat. Thank you so much for coming by. I hope people learn from Kyle's experience. And if you're a grassroots candidate, we need you. We need you to join, to get in the fight, and at whatever level that you can, whether it's the Senate, the House, the state legislator, mayor, city council, school board. This the Progressive War Room is for you, to hopefully encourage you and show you that regular people can do this, and we can. It's not only for rich people. It's not only for lawyers, like Kyle said. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and have a good day. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, audience. Thank you for coming by and showing up. Much love to you. Have a good one. All right.